Come on. Come on, you stupid freaking barrel.
Hey, Dick Cheese!
Oh, what? Oh, hey, Shades. Come to rip on me for indulging in some childhood nostalgia?
No, we kinda made fun of that already.
Oh yeah, that old SpongeBob thing. That was a joy, wasn't it? Oh, and you're a real bastard for telling Skull about what I said, you know that?
Ah, suck it up, you walking sack of peach fuzz. But yeah, gotta love those special snowflake 90s nostalgia tards making the two of us look like man-children.
Well, for the record, I'm pretty sure they don't need to do that to make me look like one. Anyways, what the hell are you doing here?
Your nostalgic sensibilities and the power of love and friendship have caused me to materialize from my home into your editing software, for such subject matter tickles my fancy.
Speak English, Four Eyes.
We talked about making a video together in a live stream.
Yeah, we get it. You're pregnant with miracles, but I think we talked about making a video a couple of months ago in a live stream.
Why, yes, sir, I just said that. It's like you have the wit of a steamed turnip. And funny we're talking about nostalgic indulgences, as this is something that I like discussing every so often when I'm in a certain kind of mood.
A mood for Xanax?
No, the nostalgic mood that BuzzFeed likes to capitalize off of.
Ah, yes, the enemy. But what could we possibly milk?
Well, there was that announcement made a little while ago about the Hey Arnold Jungle movie finally being made.
Yes, that's perfect. Know what we should do?
What should we do, you magnificent hairy bastard, you?
We should make clickbait top 10 videos.
Dead Monkey's Top 10!
Hey everyone, this is Dead Monkey, and welcome to another edition of Blatant Nostalgic Pandering. I mean, Dead Monkey's Top 10s. And today, we're counting down my top 10 favorite episodes of Hey Arnold. And with me today is someone I featured in a few cameo appearances, though we've yet to make a formal collaboration with each other. Hence their name in the title. Say hello, my exquisite fuck muffin.
Hey guys, RanterInShades here, exercising my First Amendment rights vlog style. And yeah, Hey Arnold is a show that my audience knows was a very crucial aspect of my upbringing. And since Dead Monkey and I have way too similar of interests, it came as no surprise that this was something we'd make a collab about.
I strongly concur with that statement, my fellow nostalgia tard. And since we want to capitalize, explore the distant recesses of the caverns of our memories, Shades also featured me on his own top 10 Hey Arnold episode list on his channel. So feel free to check that out by the end of this video. Anyways, on to the main event. The rules are simple. There are no rules except free love and freshly baked cookies. But none of you get any because this is a pre-recorded YouTube video, you silly butts.
Wait a second, I'm sure you have your own criteria, right? This isn't just some free-for-all.
Well, I did choose these out of pure nostalgia, and I guess you could call this my essential list, although I could easily make a top 30 list if I were to make a definitive one. I consider Hey Arnold to be my all-time favorite Nicktoon, and I think for those who didn't take the time to watch the series when it was airing should have a good couple of lists of episodes to check out. And for those who are more familiar with the episodes, it's always good to revel in your time every once in a while, right? Though at the rate we're going, this video is probably going to be twice the length of your typical Watch Mojo top 10, and it's not like our attention spans are getting any shorter. So, without further ado, let us commence the countdown. Number 10.
Hey Monk, what would you say are the biggest similarities between Halloween and Thanksgiving?
Holding back the crippling depression within us, increased rates of diabetes, and arguing about cultural appropriation on the internet?
You do have a point there. What about pumpkins?
Oh, right, pumpkins. I love pumpkins.
Indeed, and do you know who else might love pumpkins too?
If it was pumpkin spice every white girl in America?
Not exactly, I was thinking of the freak of nature, Stinky.
Oh yeah, Stinky. Right.
So for number 10, I chose Stinky's Pumpkin. In Stinky's Pumpkin, Stinky decides to join the annual vegetable growing contest, and despite his father's doubts, he's given the last pumpkin seed that his grandparents had before their farm disintegrated. And after a lot of hard work and dedication, the pumpkin grows to astronomical sizes, which earns Stinky the first place prize in the festival. The thing that I love about this episode specifically was how determined Stinky became in taking care of the pumpkin, not only to uphold his family's legacy, but to prove to himself that he had what it took to make something out of nothing. It's that passion that he shows despite the odds that I've always found sort of inspiring. Not to mention the jokes are really well timed, and it has an overall good balance between humor and morality.
We don't usually get to see episodes centered around Stinky like this, as he's usually one of the comic relief characters, because who wants to empathize with a guy named Stinky, right?
I would.
Anyway, it has a similar setup to an earlier episode, Stinky Goes Hollywood, and that Stinky feels crappy about himself and finds something that gives him not only praise, but also an identity. I also really like the reference to the movie Field of Dreams. If you build it, he will come. If you plant it, it will grow. See the similarities?
If you plant them, they will grow.
Come again?
If you plant them, they will grow.
What's them and who's they?
Why won't you listen to me? I'm God. If you plant the fucking seeds, they won't grow.
Number 9.
Okay, so for this next selection, neither of us will be making any jokes or references to our penises or beating our meats. Though, speaking of choking our chickens, this next selection is all about one character's unfathomable love for meat.
I don't think any of the characters on the show are gay, at least I don't think so, but I swear, if you make any more masturbation innuendos in this video, I'm going to kill you.
You know I suck at keeping promises, Shades, but I'll humor you.
At number 9, I chose Harold the Butcher. In Harold the Butcher, Harold is caught stealing a ham from Mr. Green's butcher shop because he's fat and has no self-control. Also, he forgot that his people pretty much worship pork products.
Not exactly. It's not the pork products that they worship. Pork just doesn't fall under kosher guidelines, so Jews are commanded not to eat any pork products.
So pigs aren't looked at as superheroes? What about Spider Pig?
The fuck are you even talking about?
Don't make me sing the song, Shades.
Anyways, Rabbi Goldberg suggests that he work for Mr. Green to pay back for what he stole. I've always liked the way that Harold's perspective changes throughout the course of the episode, starting out hating every second of the job due to a lack of understanding and discovering his fascination for the occupation as time goes by. I also really like the relationship that Harold and Mr. Green blossom by the end. It isn't until shit hits the fan that despite their differences, they realize that they needed each other more than they initially thought, and it just goes to show that anyone can reform themselves if they put the effort into it.
Experiences like this are things that most kids go through, even into their adult years. I can remember my first work experience and having a similar reaction to the idea of working and not having a totally free summer. But at the place I was interning at, I ended up developing a really nice relationship with my supervisor there, kind of like Harold did with Mr. Green. It is also interesting how Mr. Green's attitude about Harold changed throughout the episode as well. When Harold was first brought into work, his reaction was like, whatever, to then getting annoyed at Harold's incompetence. Then when Harold begins to express interest in being a butcher, he gets super irritated, especially when Arnold tries to offer him service from Harold. But he comes through in time for his big rush, and Green realizes how much the job means to Harold and offers him a free position at the shop.
Beef, veal, prosciutto, pork sausage.
He likes touching wieners.
Okay, you asked for it!
Go, Daddy boy, the pipes are calling.
No, I'm just kidding. I'm not dead, you dum-dums.
Number 8. If there's one character from the show that I wish had more screen time and episodes dedicated to, it would have to be Thaddeus Curly Gamblethorpe. Out of every character and their identity quirks, like Gerald's carefree demeanor or Eugene's oblivious optimism, I've always loved Curly for his unpredictability and instability. He was a diamond in the freaking rough that definitely needed more attention in the spotlight, but to be fair, he was always used perfectly for the comic relief. And I think we know what happens when they put the comic relief in the spotlight. It was particularly hard choosing an episode that revolved around him, but ultimately I decided to put Curly Snaps for number 8. In Curly Snaps, over a little miscommunication about who was going to be the ball monitor for the week, and he ultimately holds himself up in the principal's office until his demands are met. And by demands, I mean being ball monitor and having a meatball sub, because he's a fucking boss like that. I've always found this episode to be hilarious because of how overly obsessed Curly becomes over something so minute. With how punctual he is over every minor detail regarding how he wanted his day to go, and how everything goes the exact opposite direction. He legitimately shows signs of being clinically insane, and it goes beyond extreme levels of OCD or bipolar disorder. He's so over the top with his reaction, and it's amusing how such a small mishap sends him off the deep end. Also, there's a really obvious joke about balls here.
I I've always been curious about Curly myself. He was a really funny character that was just underused, and this episode had him at his wackiest. Even other characters pointed out that this ball monitor position isn't as super cool as he seemed to think it was, but he really wanted that job. Another thing that's interesting about this episode is how the situation resolved. It resolved in probably the simplest way it could. Simmons realized the error, and Curly, with Arnold's help, then compromised with Sid, whom he had lost the ball monitor position to. It took a good bit of talking down, but this shows how easy sticky situations can be to solve if we just behave rationally.
We all respect you and think you're special. Now why don't you open the door and...
Save your new ageisms for the saps, granola boy!
Ow!
Number 7.
Excuse me, Shades, but I need to go and slip into something a little more comfortable.
Are you coming on to me?
Do you want me to?
No, I'm flattered, but I just don't think of you like that.
Well, don't worry, I'm not. Seriously, this is a bad fanfiction start.
So number 7 is kind of a personal one for me, and as you guessed it, it's about love. It's also a significantly important episode in the series regarding the relationship between Arnold and Helga, which would be Arnold's Valentine. In Arnold's Valentine, Arnold receives a letter from his French pen pal Cecile saying that she wants to meet him for Valentine's Day, which in reality, Helga sabotaged the letter, posing as Cecile, saying that she was coming to America, not knowing that the real Cecile was actually on her way down to the States to see him already. Simultaneously, Arnold gives a Valentine to his first crush, 6th grader Ruth McDougal, asking her on a blind date. So while Helga dresses up and poses as Cecile to fool Arnold, Arnold has to bounce back and forth between these two dates with Helga and Ruth that are conveniently across the street from each other. I know, it sounds a lot more complicated than it actually is, but hey, love is complicated, am I right? Now, why do I relate to this episode? Well, while Arnold is on his date with Ruth, he soon discovers that she's not who he thought she was, thus rendering all of the time and effort trying to get to know her useless. And if you're familiar with the first season from which this episode comes from, you know that he really had a thing for her as a distant admirer. I can resonate with this because I've gone through many different situations like this, as I know it's a fairly common thing. As someone who's yet to have a formal relationship with someone that hasn't been based online, as pathetic as that may sound, I can totally understand that sense of disappointment after spending so much time wanting to get to know someone and discovering that they're the exact opposite of what you hope they might be in terms of compatibility.
Oh my god, he's bitching about his love life now! Unsubscribe!
Ah, shut your butt flaps. This is my video and I'm gonna bitch about my love life as much as I want. But anyways, the way that the episode ends with Arnold and Helga ultimately feeling confused, along with that sense that there might be some kind of chemistry between the two, really does give this episode some depth. And it's the first time I think Arnold subconsciously questions how he feels for Helga when he asks, "Who are you?" by the end of the episode, while Helga simultaneously questions if he liked her or her fabrication of Cecile.
The thing that jumps out at me throughout this conundrum is how Arnold realizes how little he has in common with Ruth. We all have these moments where we think we know what we want in a partner, but it ends up not being what you were looking for. We've also had these crushes that really only end up being physical attractions. We didn't know anything about Ruth up until this episode, and she ends up being probably the most bland character on the show. Meanwhile, while Helga is acting as Cecile, she and Arnold are better able to carry a conversation, and thus the idea of an Arnold and Helga pairing is established.
There's one thing I still don't understand. Who are you?
I can't tell you.
Why not?
I just can't, that's all, okay?
Well, okay.
Number 6.
Dead monkey? What am I doing?
Are you picking your nose? Because that's considered a bad habit.
No, I mean, what am I doing with my life? I mean, I've been making videos for 3 years, I'm out of college, and I still don't feel like I've really accomplished much.
I see what you mean. Well, have you been looking for work?
Kind of, but I'm still not sure what it is I really want to do.
You thought about becoming a paperboy?
Those are still a thing?
Well, if Oscar Kokoschka can find a paperboy job, then so can you. Except now you don't have to worry about riding a bike and you can break people's windows from the comfort and warmth of your own car.
Oh, goody.
You know, out of all the lazy shitbags I've seen throughout cartoon history, Oscar Kokoschka has always been one of my favorites. He's the kind of lazy, inconsiderate asshole who you can't help but love to hate. He has no ambitions in life, he mooches off of his wife and acquaintances, he abuses other people's trust, particularly when asking people to borrow money, and he's exactly the kind of person you would never want to associate with. Pretty much your typical college kid. But somehow, whenever he's a central character in an episode, you always find yourself sort of rooting for him to learn his lesson. And again, he's still the kind of person most people probably wouldn't want to touch with a 10-foot pole. Oh, and he also looks an awful lot like Nico Bellic from Grand Theft Auto 4. But anyways, I had a little difficulty choosing my favorite Oscar-themed episode, kinda like Curly and a few other characters, and I ultimately settled with Oscar Gets a Job for number 6. In Oscar Gets a Job, Oscar's wife, Susie, makes Oscar look for a job, which is pretty self-explanatory. At first, it proves to be difficult considering the fact that he has virtually no experience or much of a formal educational background, and he enlists Arnold for help where he manages to land a job with a newspaper route. Though throughout the episode, Oscar continuously blows off his route and manipulates Arnold into running it for him. I think what I find so entertaining about this episode is the kind of excuses Oscar makes and the way that Arnold finds out that Oscar is trying to trick him into doing his work. Like, for example, one minute Oscar tells him that his back is hurting, and then later when Arnold gets home from doing his route, Oscar is seen doing some weird foreign dance with Grandma. His behaviors are perfectly exaggerated to where it really drives the point home that he's nothing but a rat. And of course, the way that he turns himself around at the last minute and puts a conscious effort into performing his job shows that he had the initiative in him the whole time, he just didn't want to apply himself. Which again sort of mirrors the typical college kid. And as a college kid who is only a few terms away from finishing and is currently looking for work, I can sort of relate. Also, as someone who has tendencies of being lazy from time to time, which partially explains the upload gaps, I can sort of get behind it, even though I wouldn't completely classify myself as the kind of excuse-making jackass that he is. Either way, I think this episode is pretty funny, and seriously, Oscar has to be Nico fucking Bellic, because I could sort of imagine Ernie Potts being a midget Roman. Yellow car!
Oscar's the kind of character that right away comes to mind when I think of endearing. Oscar Gets a Job probably best represents his character traits outside of his relationship with his wife that's explored in episodes like Arnold as Cupid and Baby Oscar. But the episode paints him as such a mooch who was just hesitant to make any sort of change in his life. Basically, he's a man-child, but he still manages to show that he is capable of change. As someone who's fresh out of college, I think this situation can serve as something of a motivational tool as far as job searches go.
He's 38 years old, he's never had a job, and you expect me to hire him as an X-ray technician?
Number 5. For number 5, we have buses, bikes, and subways, but for now, we can call it BBS. In BBS, not to be confused with
Big Booty Syndrome?
Okay, this is probably why we shouldn't make abbreviation shades. Ever think of that? Excuse me. Anyways, in buses, bikes, and subways, Harold and Helga get left behind at their local chocolate factory because Mr. Simmons is a dumbass and doesn't know how to keep track of his students, and they're left to defend themselves against the elements, and they have to utilize their environment to try and get back to civilization. And with every method of travel they come across, whether it be by subway, hiking, stolen clown bikes, or boat, something always prevents them from progressing. I've always found this episode to be funny because of how their circumstances continuously get worse due to easily preventable accidents, miscalculations, or Harold's curiosity. There's a lot of great comedic timing, and it's kind of sweet how Harold and Helga have some kind of chemistry together by the end. Oh, and Harold doesn't know his own phone number.
Hello? Mommy? It's me, Harold.
I never heard of you! Don't call me again!
This is one of the more amusing episodes of the last season. The situations are really off the wall, and as my eloquent associate said, Simmons is an oblivious dumbass and doesn't think to do this thing called head count. I mean, for fuck's sake, you're a teacher. It was also really hilarious to see Chocolate Boy sneak onto the field trip by somehow holding onto the bottom of the goddamn bus and swimming in the friggin' chocolate and contaminating what would be a perfectly good batch of chocolate. What I also like is how Harold ends up being the hero of the episode. When Harold claims to recognize where they are, Helga of course has her doubts, and he ends up getting them to WrestleMania.
They gotta be around here somewhere.
When I get my hands on them, I'm gonna pound the fat one while the skinny one watches.
I would like to see that.
Number 4.
I think I'm being channeled. from an alternate universe.
And I have whatever drugs you're on.
No, I've always had these strange tangential visions of myself in some kind of parallel universe.
I swear, if you start talking about Doctor Who, I'm gonna strangle you through my monitor.
Whoa, who said anything about Doctor Who? I'm not even into the show.
Perfect! Now I can make as many incriminating jokes about Whovians as I want!
I think pissing off the fanfiction crowd is enough. We don't need these people too. Anyway, multiverse theory is still weirdly cool, kind of like the Hey Arnold episode with Arnie, the one I don't hate.
So we aren't gonna talk about how the robots look like sentient butt plugs, or that the TARDIS sounds like it's degrading to the mentally handicapped?
Nah, let's save that for later. I think enough people want to kill us already.
Good point. Moving on.
So for number 4, we have Arnold Visits Arnie. In Arnold Visits Arnie, Arnold has a nightmare where he visits Arnie's hometown, and it's pretty much the complete opposite of Arnold City, as in being in redneck country, as opposed to being like Portland, Oregon, where the titular city in Hey Arnold is based off of, and every character has an opposite counterpart with the exact opposite personality traits. For example, Helga's counterpart, Hilda, is more down-to-earth, poetic, and kind, whereas Helga is more impulsive, angry, and secretive. It pretty much plays out like Arnold is in some kind of weird parallel universe, and is one of the most batshit crazy episodes of the series. Maybe it plays into the fact that I'm such a huge horror buff, but I love how this episode plays with your expectations in such a creepy way. I also love how this episode plays some kind of a distorted vision of Arnold's psychology, and how his desires completely shift based on the doppelganger's personalities, as in Arnold falling for Hilda and being annoyed by Lulu, Lila's opposite, and her constant flirtations. Almost as if he subconsciously thinks Helga would be perfect to him if she showcased her true likable personality underneath her veil of disdain for him. Kinda like it's foreshadowing their chemistry. Okay, I'm probably looking a little bit too deeply into that, but hey, they reference Evil Dead and Children of the Corn. No wonder I love this episode.
The thing I've always found the most interesting about Arnold Visits Arnie is how the relationships between the characters pay homage to the episode Weird Cousin, in which Arnie makes his debut. I should mention I've never cared for that episode that much, mainly due to Arnie basically inching his way in and meddling with Arnold's relationship/friendship with Lila. It's like, bruh, you don't mess with your bro's hoe. And in Arnold Visits Arnie, Lila's counterpart takes interest in Arnold, which ticks Arnie off, and all the while, Arnold takes interest in Helga's counterpart. That's basically what happens in Weird Cousin. But seeing the setting and the characters flip-flop like a parallel universe makes the episode a lot more lighthearted despite the weird twist it takes towards the end.
Do I know you? I don't think so. I'm Arnold.
Hilda, nice to meet you.
Sorry I knocked you over.
Yeah, it's not your fault. I mean, I was the one sitting on the ground after all.
Yeah, what were you doing exactly?
Oh, you know, just reciting some poetry. You see, I was gonna go see a movie, but then I noticed the moon here and decided I'd rather watch it instead. It's just so inspiring, don't you think?
Yeah.
Number 3.
Shades, have I ever mentioned that Harold is my spirit animal?
Actually, what you've said is that Les Claypool is your spirit animal, and you've said that like 3 times already today.
Hey, my spirit animals fluctuate on a regular basis. On some days it's Les Claypool, and on some days it's Harold Berman. And once in a blue moon, it's Devin Townsend.
Hey! That's my spirit animal!
Oh, yeah, right. Sorry, Stout, I forgot about that.
Well, you should be, you fucking asshole. You very well should be.
Wait a damn second, how are you still alive?
This might take a little while to explain, but first things first, I gotta run a few errands and do some things, and yeah, get back to you. Gotta go.
Anyways, let's get on with it, dude. We're getting way off.
You should be, you piece of shit!
So for number 3, we have Weighing Harold. In Weighing Harold, Harold gets tired of being made fun of for his weight, and he joins a weight loss cruise line, only to return weighing more than he did before. And when everyone else is making him into a laughingstock, Arnold comes along and helps him try to get back in shape. Again, this is another personal episode for me. Why? Because I've always had trouble with my weight since I was a child. Admittingly, I didn't grow up with the best diet, and I didn't make the best dietary choices in my teens. I was picked on since I was in kindergarten, and I've always had difficulty with stress eating due to depression. And this isn't me blaming others for my problems, but it was a factor that sort of influenced me into making bad decisions. But I take responsibility for my current health. And at least I can say it was my own doing before you make incriminating comments in the comment section. Anyways, this episode sort of inspired me throughout my childhood to try and take that initiative and improve myself the best that I could despite what other people would say about me. And while my body's not where where I really wanted to be right now, I can definitely say that I feel much less self-conscious about myself than I have for the past 24 years of my life, and I'm a lot more physically active than I was as a kid outside of PE. I've recently been trying to be consistent with an exercise routine, emphasis on trying and consistent, and I've set a few goals for myself in the long run. I'm not aiming to have a six-pack or anything like that, I'm mostly just doing it to keep myself healthy. And the thing that I've always found interesting about the end of this episode is that after Harold took his time to lose the weight, he managed to pull himself back to his former body type, and everyone was proud of him for his dedication. I guess the biggest thing that I've gotten from this episode is that you don't have to be perfect just to appease other people. If you can set a goal, put in the effort, and feel confident about your end results, people will notice your confidence, and I honestly find that really powerful. I mean, yeah, he kinda reverts back to his old ways at the end of the episode, but still, it holds up to me. Oh, and this is one of the first episodes of Hey Arnold that I remember watching before I became more engrossed with the series, so you can imagine it's pretty special to me.
Even I sometimes worry I might be gaining weight myself. I mean, I know I don't look particularly chubby, but I know for a fact that I don't have the greatest diet either. I feel my stomach kinda sticking out, and I find myself wondering, am I gonna have to do something about this soon? And that's pretty much what Harold does in this episode. I remember being kind of frightened when Harold steps off the cruise ship before he later reveals that he ate more out of fear of what he was going to be taking on. And not to deviate too much from the message of the episode, but I've always laughed really hard when Arnold goes to Harold's house to try and help him, and when Harold asks who is visiting him, his dad replies, "It's the pizza man!" And he opens the door with a big-ass smile on his face. Okay, I'll stop joking now.
Hey, it's all good, bro. I mean, it's not like I've never done that before when I've been wallowing in my own depression over my fatness. Oh my god, I need help.
Number 2.
You know, Shades, I feel like I've been living a lie. I've been suppressing my emotions for far too long now, and I think it's about time I talk to somebody about them.
Are you finally coming out of the closet?
What? No! I mean, I think I need to seek some professional help. Maybe a psychologist or something.
Why would that be, Monk?
Well, if you really must know, I'm not really happy right now. I feel like I'm sinking in my own cesspool of failures, constantly feeling overshadowed by my superiors, feeling inadequate to the people that I care about. Sometimes I feel like I shouldn't even wake up in the morning. And it's like...
Okay, I'd love to hear you dribble on about how every rose has its thorn, just like every night has its dawn, but we got a video to wrap up here.
Fucking choke neck.
So coming down to my second choice on this list would have to be Helga on the Couch. In Helga on the Couch, a psychologist comes to PS 118 and observes Mr. Simmons' class. She notices Helga picking on Arnold and refers Helga to weekly sessions with her after she's witnessed punching Brainy. The rest of this episode plays out within these sessions as Helga discusses her family life, her earlier years in school, her general frustrations about her life, and how she developed her attitude. What I've always loved about this episode was how deep we dive within Helga's psyche. We can always see how Helga's family life is depicted throughout the series as she's overshadowed by her perfect older sister, Olga, but in this episode we really get an in-depth look at how her treatment has affected her over the course of time. The scenes depicting her childhood is heartbreaking as both of her parents neglect her in favor for her older sister. They pretty much ignore her and even forget her name frequently, as we've seen throughout the series. Although instead of her treatment being casually shown, it's kind of placed under a microscope, showing her regular routine through her eyes. And the way that she has to walk alone in the rain with all of those strangers not only makes me loathe her parents even more, but it seems to metaphorically represent how lonely she feels in the world. Not to mention, it always tears me apart seeing that dog rip her lunchbox out of her hands. I mean, come on, that's just too depressing, even if it's a little bit overdramatic. And of course, this episode reveals how she met Arnold. I find it incredibly sweet the way that they first encounter each other, and it all truly makes sense as to why she holds such an attachment to him. His simple act of kindness gave her some kind of hope and reason to believe that not all people are bad in this world. Though because of the way that she's treated by her peers and family, she finds difficulty expressing any hint of affection or admiration. The portrayal of these events are not completely overdramatic like some cartoons try to make it, nor is it overly sappy, even though, again, the dog taking your lunchbox would be quite the bad coincidence. There is a sense of realism from the way that the scenario plays out, and it can be easily easily relatable for those who grew up in the shadow of a sibling or with neglectful parents. Also, if I had to put up with half the shit that Harold bestowed upon her, I would have thrown him down a flight of stairs already. Not to mention, I really like the relationship that Helga and the psychologist develop as well. Almost like she'd be Helga's perfect adoptive mother or something. Kind of like Miss Honey when she adopts Matilda at the end of Matilda. Except bitches ain't being thrown by their pigtails like a hammer throw, and there ain't no motherfucking salamanders in any goddamn water pitchers. Either way, this episode is one of my all-time favorites, and it would easily hit my #1 slot for this list if it wasn't for something else.
Personally, I've never been too big on the episodes surrounding Helga, but Helga on the Couch is definitely one of the more substantial ones. It's a really well done character analysis that really explores Helga's backstory and her upbringing. Although Helga is leaps and bounds more privileged than some people I know personally, I mean, for fuck's sake, her dad's the goddamn Beeper King. It's shitty how she has to live her life with people that clearly don't care about her. We also learn how she first met Arnold and how she first developed feelings for him. That fateful day that would change her life forever. I've always found it interesting how Miss Bliss, the psychologist, was able to quickly pick up on the fact that Arnold played a role in Helga's behavioral issues, which catches Helga by surprise. The episode is also noteworthy for having Miss Bliss be the third person, after Phoebe and Lila, that Helga reveals her obsessive crush to. There's a lot of emotional buildup, but even though the idea of revealing her feelings for Arnold terrifies her, I think she ultimately felt better after telling. It's funny how emotions work like that.
I think that your behavior may be covering up other more important issues, and I want to try to get to the root of the matter. Maybe uncover some emotions you may be hiding.
Hiding?
Before we move on to the #1 spot, here are a few honorable mentions. My first honorable mention would have to be Pigeon Man. Just to get this out of the way first, as I can imagine most of you probably expected this to be my #1 selection, the way Pigeon Man opens up about his distrust for people and his passion for taking care of his pigeons is still rather chilling to listen to, and there's still a lot of relatable elements to it. And yeah, I have to say it's still one of the best episodes of the series, though I have some other reasons as to why I'm not adding this on my list, but I think Shades might know.
I don't know if I should say much here, and I have a feeling some people might know why. You should probably check out my video at the end of this.
As for my second honorable mention, it would have to be Monkey Man. I've always found this episode to be interesting because we finally get an episode featuring that one character who's been shown running around in the background as some sort of a visual gag on occasions. Based on this one episode that he's been featured in, he's funny as fuck, and I kind of wish they made more episodes with him. I like the way he goes from a crime-fighting hobo with a speech impediment to a Gene Wilder lookalike in such a short amount of time. Alas, if only the episode had better pacing and maybe a little more screen time of Monkey Man transforming into an articulate gentleman, I probably would have included it. I will say though, he and Deadpool would make one hell of a duo.
Monkey Man is goddamn hilarious. It is cool to see an episode centering around a guy who, for the longest time, we only got to hear in transitions between scenes shouting, "I'm Monkey Man!" Like Dead Monkey said, I feel the episode was too short. The points in the plot seem to jump really quickly to one another. It does jump out at me the way Sid confronts Monkey Man when he gets jumped and gets his shoes stolen, which inspires Monkey Man to reassess himself and reflect on his actions and attempt to do right for those he wasn't there for. But it just seems really quick. Also, if you became a superhero, would that make you Dead Monkey Man?
As for my third honorable mention, it would have to be Phoebe's Little Problem. You know, I find it kind of funny and strange that they decided to end the series with an episode surrounding a fart joke. They basically ended the series with a fart, or specifically Phoebe farting in a microphone and the episode revolving around her being embarrassed about it. Though as out of place as it was for a series-ending episode, I still found it to be rather funny and frankly somewhat relatable. Let's face it, everyone farts and everyone has farted at the worst possible time. We all have crazy fart stories. We've all had days where our asses just won't fucking shut up. They cure cancer, people. Look it up and embrace it. Nevertheless, I don't think it would have fit well on the list considering how overly dickish some of the characters act over something that really would have been a thing for a few days at most.
I honestly don't care much for this episode, and it largely has to do with the fact that it was the last episode of the series. I mean, I get a kick out of fart jokes every once in a while, while, see Terrence and Philip, but I mean, really? This is the last episode? I really feel like the 5th season could have had a lot more episodes and a more strong conclusion. Phoebe's little problem is kind of funny, especially at the end, but it's not exactly laugh out loud funny for me. Someone farting is not exactly something that I think needs an entire episode based around it. It's not like this is current Family Guy.
As for my 4th honorable mention, I would have to choose Grandpa's birthday. First off, I fucking love Grandpa, though a certain someone has my favorite Grandpa-related episode on their list already. And as for this one, I thought it was great, but again, it was off by a sliver. I remember when I first saw this, I thought they were actually going to kill off Grandpa, and I reacted in a somewhat similar way that your typical brony would react if they killed off Fluttershy or some shit, or a character in The Walking Dead. But ultimately, I still think it's a pretty funny episode, even though it's fairly morbid, but I love morbid humor anyways.
Episodes about Grandpa are generally really funny. I've never really gotten family curse plots though. It is kind of silly how Grandpa freaks out over something that everyone knows is bullshit. The part I remember the most is when Grandpa thinks he's dead and sees Oscar, who thinks he's won a bet.
Now I know that Shades is gonna love my 5th honorable mention here. Another one that I was really tempted to add was What's Opera, Arnold? I've always found this episode to be pretty damn hilarious. The lyricism in the dream sequences, along with the mashups of various famous opera songs, always made me laugh with how the characters would interact with each other. It's kinda cool the way they introduced us to such historical landmarks in such a humorous and creative way.
You'd be right, Dead Monkey. This episode is really entertaining. The interactions between characters coupled with the parodies of well-known operas really help this episode stand out. I like the way Helga takes out Ruth and takes her costume, and Arnold doesn't even realize it. Though to be fair, this was in Helga's dream. I also like the fight scene with Curly, who is hilarious as the bullfighter villain out to steal the girl.
And as for my 6th and last honorable mention, considering we've dragged this on longer than we should have, I chose Freeze Frame. One thing I've always loved about Hey Arnold is how they incorporate a sense of mystery to some of their episodes. I've always loved the kind of unexpected twists and turns the writers would make. See other episodes like Weazenette and Ransom, and I always loved this episode because of its build-up and its payoff. Both Arnold and Gerald become obsessed with something that really didn't need as much attention as it got, and the more that they let their imaginations get the better of them, the more the calamity escalated with each bit of information found. And I remember when I saw this as a kid, I thought they were actually going to kill Mr. Green. And it was quite the revelation to find out that Mr. Green's first name was Marty. I can only hope that his wife's name's not Janet. It was really well written, and I almost put this within the top 4. Although...
This is probably the most adventurous episode in the series. Who are these guys? Why are they dressed as clowns? Who is this Marty guy that they're trying to get? It really sucks you into the plot, and you want to see how the plot wraps up. I also like that camera Arnold and Gerald carry with them throughout the episode. It looks really cool, especially for the time.
And of course, these are only 6 episodes of the many other episodes that I wanted to include, but I don't feel like making this video 2 hours long, because 40 to 45 minutes is fucking long enough for a top 10, am I right? But I actually like talking about things in better detail. But anyways, we might as well move on to the number 1 slot. So let's get this shit over with already. And my number 1 episode of Hey Arnold is... a 3-way tie between Four-Eyed Jack, Headless Cabbie, and Ghost Bride.
Wait a damn second, Monk. I thought we were just choosing 1 episode per slot.
Hey, it's my channel, and I'm gonna do whatever the fuck I want. So suck a dick, dumb shit.
You really need to tell me this shit, Dead Monkey. I swear to God, sometimes you just make me want to...
Huff empty bleach canisters?
No.
Play in traffic?
No.
Get freaky with a branding iron?
No.
Colonic irrigation?
What?
This is precisely why Google was invented, Shades. Learn how to use the internet.
Jesus Christ, why did I even fucking agree to do this?
Because you love me and I said something about cookies?
Oh yeah, that's right.
You're probably wondering why I'm doing a 3-way tie here. Well, I mentioned earlier that I'm a huge horror buff, right? And did I mention that I also love the horror-themed episodes? Oh, wait a second, I don't think I did. Well, now you know. So initially I was gonna stick with 1 horror-themed episode for my number 1 spot, but I couldn't narrow it down between these 3 episodes. So it's a 3-way tie, because I'm fucking cheeky like that. That is isn't to say that episodes like the previously mentioned Weezanette or Ghost Train aren't up to similar standards, though there was something about these 3 selections that really hit a mark with me. To briefly sum up each episode, Four-Eyed Jack is about a ghost of a former resident of the boarding house who died in some freak accident who haunts said boarding house in search for his missing glasses. And the episode revolves around the residents searching for the ghost and trying not to let their imaginations run too wild. Headless Cabbie is about Arnold and his friends walking through the park at night after Arnold tells an urban legend about a cabbie who lost his head because his scarf caught into a branch while a crazy lady was looking for her Scotty dog. Yeah, it's kinda ridiculous. And Ghost Bride is about the gang getting trapped in a graveyard and being stalked by supposedly the ghost of a woman who murdered her ex-husband. Now, what do these episodes have in common with each other? Well, honestly, I would have to say the mysteries behind the urban legends. I'm kind of a sucker for different kinds of folklore and the paranormal, and one of the things that really got me interested in the subject of the paranormal actually came from Hey Arnold when I was a kid. One of the main things that all of these episodes had in common is how the characters would let their imagination get the best of them before realizing what they were going up against was their own paranoia. Although there was always some kind of blatant hint at the end of each episode that whatever entity they were investigating was real within their world. And with both Four-Eyed Jack and Headless Cabbie, that shit sunk into me. I swear the first time I saw Four-Eyed Jack looking for his glasses at the end of the titular episode, when he said, boo, to Gerald, that shit fucked me up. It was one of the reasons why I couldn't sleep in the basement where my bedroom was in one of the houses that I lived in during my elementary school years. I would say that out of all the episodes, that one probably had the craziest impact on me. As for the Headless Cabbie, while the urban legend was kinda stupid, it was mostly the coincidences that the kids would come across that, while seeming like they were too good to be true, were really just their imaginations running wild over a few coincidences. And as for Ghost Bride, I didn't see this till later when it aired around the time the show got cancelled. Out of all of them, this is my favorite of the urban legends. Yeah, it's obvious that Helga's just fucking around with him throughout most of the episode when they get locked in, but it's not till another Ghost Bride shows up where shit gets real. I won't say who it is because the motivations behind it are so goddamn ridiculous, and the ending is actually kinda eerie despite being pretty funny. Oh, and the part where they're reading the grave of the Ghost Bride is quite possibly my favorite joke in the entire series.
Here lies Cynthia Snell. She lived her life and went straight to... I can't read the rest.
I've always liked Halloween-esque episodes of shows like Hey Arnold, mainly because I would usually have to wait until Halloween to see the actual Halloween episode, which is definitely a good episode. I highly recommend you check it out. All 3 of these episodes here have a really interesting setup that could work as a legitimate episode for the Halloween time of the year, especially since there's always some factor that takes the episodes down a strange left turn, be it the weird noises Ernie hears in Four-Eyed Jack, the guys finding an actual Scottish Terrier in the park and then running into Eugene doing some weird clog dance on cobblestone fucking road in Headless Cabbie, or the second Ghost Bride in Ghost Bride. These might not technically be Halloween themed episodes, but the use of that twist is not only clever, but it is also enough to get you to go, wait a minute, what the fuck? My favorite of these would definitely be Headless Cabbie, then followed by Four-Eyed Jack, and then followed by Ghost Bride, mainly since I'm not as familiar with the episode as I am with the other 2. So thanks, Dead Monkey. You owe me for working triple shift. I hope you have a good explanation for this.
No, I don't!
Ultimately, I chose all of these episodes because I feel like they represent my strongest memories and ties to the show. Not only that, but they all still hold up to my standards today. And personally, I'm looking forward to the long-awaited conclusion of the series when it releases next year. Granted, I don't have cable, but if it ever makes it out on DVD or Blu-ray or Putlocker or Netflix, I'll definitely have to check it out. Well, there you have it, folks. If you have your own top 10 favorite episodes of Hey Arnold, feel free to leave them down below in the comments section. If you want to check out the other part of this little collaboration, make sure to go check out RanterInShades' top 10 list right here. 20% less cringe and 40% less skits guaranteed. Link is also in the description. And if you got a kick out of this video, feel free to like, share, and subscribe for more content. So this is Dead Monkey
and RanterInShades signing
off. Take it easy and have a good one.